The word Cajun is derived from Acadian. It came into being gradually as a result of Louisianians mispronouncing Acadian. They would say what sounded like a Cajun, then the first A was dropped and shortened even further. Thus was born Cajun or Cajun, and that's where the word Cajun came from. First of all, there are a lot of stereotypes about the Cajuns of today and yesterday, stereotypes such as Cajuns love to eat, drink, and dance. Cajuns are agrarian people. Certain stereotypes like that. Those are just stereotypes. I mean, our lives do not revolve around eating, drinking, and dancing as some of the national media and some of the Hollywood types would have people believe. You know, this is not necessarily the characteristics of the Cajun people. I'll give you a few characteristics, one of which is there's a tendency toward the spiritual or the metaphysical. We understand as Cajun people that, you know, not only the material world, but that there's a world beyond the material world, namely the metaphysical. So I think down here you would see a tendency toward spirituality, toward the metaphysical that may not be quite so pronounced in other parts of the country. Another characteristic of the Cajun people would be what we call joie de vivre, which is joy of life. Some mistake this joie de vivre for maybe an alcohol-induced state of euphoria. That's not what joie de vivre is, although South Louisianians, Acadians do have something of a tendency to drink at least their fair share down in South Louisiana. That's one of the cultural characteristics. But joie de vivre is the tendency to, rejoice in one's lot in life. There's an inherent happiness. There's an inherent self-actualization, you might say. If we don't aspire to grandiose things, if we just aspire to, doing your job well, whatever the job is, raising a family, and so forth, finding joy in a job well done, these things bring joy by themselves. And so this self-actualization is more easily reached if we don't aspire to things that are really grandiose. That's not to say that the Acadian people are unambitious. That's not true either, but I'm just saying there's not a natural tendency to shoot for the moon necessarily, but to rejoice in one's lot in life. Yeah, I mean, as the longtime editor of Acadiana Profile, which is a magazine for the Cajun country, I took a particular pride in my French Acadian heritage. I mean, I think it's a natural thing to be proud of your heritage, where you're from. Our people were were very rugged people originally when they were living in Acadie, or what is now Nova Scotia, and managed to survive some terrible ordeals, the ordeals of expulsion from their homeland and being essentially made into indentured servants along the East Coast, during the process of the exile. We carved out a civilization in South Louisiana, our people did, where it didn't exist before so much, this Atchafalaya, to the west of the Atchafalaya River, and have carved out a new Acadia, you might say, and it's a very diverse, culturally diverse and wealthy part of the country. People of Acadian descent in South Louisiana tend to stay put. We're maybe have not historically been as mobile as maybe Americans in general, where we're zigzagging all over the nation. We tend to stay put, and because of that, there's a familiarity with our environment. There's a familiarity with our culture, our people, and this creates an element of, I guess, cohesion and therefore identity of the Acadian or Cajun people and their families. There is a confusion sometimes between Cajun and Creole. Cajun is simply people of Acadian descent who are descendants from the Acadians who were exiled from what is now Nova Scotia in the mid-1700s. That's who Cajuns are. Creoles, on the other hand, sometimes it's misunderstood that Creoles are people who are of African American descent. That's not necessarily so. A Creole is a descendant of a first generation immigrant into New Orleans during the antebellum period. People from that generation on, these are the Creoles. They can be Spanish or French or Caribbean or African American Creoles. But Creoles are not necessarily people of African American descent, although some Creoles are of African American descent.